Good morning, everybody. You are now tuned into a very first episode of Coffee with Coach. I'm not a basketball coach, a football coach, a soccer coach. I am a firearms coach. And, I just wanted to use this opportunity to have a conversation. Really, in this case, a monologue about firearm related topics. But honestly, I also want to actually talk about things that are non-firearm related. And here's the reason why: because as a self-defender, a lot of times as self-defenders in today's world, we wake up, there's a lot of anxiety. People wake up, all they want to do is talk about their guns and, self-defense and blowing somebody's ass off or whatever, crime, homelessness, all this stuff is bubbling up. And I think I want to use this particular platform to kind of talk about things that are firearms related and non-firearms related, right? Even though I'm only interacting with y'all through the camera and this is a monologue, so to say, I think the best thing we could do is start to comment in the, below the video to get conversations going. With that being said, before I get on the topic today, I do want to say that this is a new channel and I really need y'all support. So if you can subscribe, please hit the notification bell so you can be notified when there's more content like this. I'm pretty sure we're going to have more Coffee with Coach episodes. All right. So let's get right into it. Today is actually a firearm, I guess you can say pop culture kind of related episode, right? And with that, if you haven't heard in the news, it's been well over a week now. A rapper from a super group, rap group called the Migos, if you haven't heard of them, one of their members was killed in a tragic murder, right? By the way, before I begin, I do have coffee in my cup. You know how you have some of those analysts that are on TV and they're drinking they have coffee cups, but there's no coffee in it. I'm actually drinking coffee, right? So anyways, there's no editing in this, just so you guys know. But this person was tragically killed. And it was a real senseless murder. What happened in a nutshell is there was a dice game going on. Apparently there was some words exchanged between two different kind of crews, long story short, shots rang out and one person was killed. I think two other people were shot and seriously injured. I'm speaking from a cultural world here. And when I released my series on race and the Second Amendment, you're going to hear a little bit of these talking points that are in there. And where I'm coming from today is a real cultural perspective, right? Like, what do we see and do as a culture in the hip hop community, even in the Black community, right? But there's always this thing where people, in the hip hop community, where a lot of these people come from, urban areas, some sort of street life, a lot of them. And it seems like once they become famous, they bring some of that stuff with them, right? And they still sometimes like to be in those areas where this stuff is happening, which I can't understand. And the crazy thing about it is a lot of these guys, when they talk about hiring security, they don't hire real security, right? They don't hire like professional security, ex-military police officers, professional security officers. They usually get their homeboy from the hood that they grew up in to come and be their security. Now, people say, well, what does this have to? This has a lot to do with culture, right? And most of the time, they're very young kids. They're very young boys or very young men, right? And what people are willing to do for money is pretty amazing, right? That you can say, I'm going to carry a gun for protection of another person, knowing that I don't have proper training, I don't have a license to even do this, right? But I'm willing to stick my neck out to be a protector of someone that has some celebrity status, right? And a lot of times that's from a cultural perspective, that is designed that way, because you get someone who's 18, 19, 20, sometimes 17 years old that's carrying a gun in defense for, let's say, this well-known celebrity. I'll be honest, that is a recipe for a crash out, because they say, well, if he's 17, 18, 19, 20, and he ends up getting a murder charge of some sort, he'll be out when he's 40, 45 or whatever, and everything's going to be okay for him, right? And there's some people with that logic that actually adopt that mindset, and it causes a lot of harm, right? But in the case of this, I did a YouTube short about this maybe a few days ago, and I've been kind of updating some other shorts as well. But the main thing is, when I say why was this rapper, his name is Takeoff, that's his rapper name. Why was Takeoff killed? And it had a lot to do with um, lack of education, lack of understanding, you know, untrained people, you know what I mean? And a disregard for life, totally. That's why this guy was killed, because he was in a situation where people were moving a certain way that wasn't a way that could have helped mitigate a situation. Now, we talked about de-escalation, I think in my short when I talked about this, but there was also no real de-escalation that was going on. The rapper who was killed, his friend, or I mean not his friend, but his actual uncle who's in a group with him, appeared to be de-escalating something. He said, "You know what, man, let me go before I hurt somebody," right? Because something was going on. He felt it. He was like, "Let me get out of here," which I thought was excellent. But when the gun came out and the first shots rang out, that was where the negligent part began, right? Whoever this is, this person and many other people like him don't have conflict resolution. And that's something that from a self-defender's perspective is something that we really, really, really need, is how to conflict resolution, how to problem solve with each other. Now, again, from a cultural perspective, some of our men that are in these urban settings that are used to dealing in this way on the streets don't have this skill, right? And they don't have this skill, whether they have a gun or they don't have this gun. And I know there's going to be some people who may watch this video that may get offended by what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is actual fact, right? They don't have the conflict resolution skills. They don't have the problem solving skills that they need to get out of situations like this. Otherwise, stuff like this will never happen, right? Where, oh man, you messed with my girlfriend, you know what I'm saying? Or you know what I'm saying, like you hit my car, or you stepped on my shoes, right? Stuff that's so trivial that we should be able to actually mitigate, actually problem solve and conflict and resolve the conflict. Sometimes we just can't do it, right? So as a whole, as a culture, we really need those skills. As a self-defender, you should be thinking first, what are my de-escalation skills like? How's my conflict resolution? How's my problem solving? How do I get myself out of a situation before it escalates or get to somewhere else, right? So my reason for saying all this is, even though that's a small microcosm of what do you call it? Even though it's a small microcosm of like the world in itself, those little small microcosms play out in every culture, right? Because just because these guys don't have conflict resolution or problem solving skills in this hip hop culture, there are people that around the United States that don't have the, think about it. It's not a rapper or some rapper street crew that is always getting, or that is always in a what do you call it, a road rage situation where a firearm is used. It's not always them. So we can't just say, oh, it's the hip hop community, because believe it or not, there are people who consider themselves law abiding citizens. Y'all, they got some issues. When I look at bad moral, look at bad character, when I look at you know, people who can't make decisions, that's a problem. But there's a lot of people in our communities that walk around just because they got a gun and they're legal to carry. They think that they can handle any situation, right? But the truth is, they may end up just like this kid who murdered the rapper, right? Can't conflict, can't resolve any conflict, can't de-escalate anything. And they think just because they got the gun, that's the first tool, that's the first means of defending themselves, right? Hold on, gotta take my coffee. So if you haven't, I implore you to kind of look up the story. Some of y'all may not care, uh, which is fine, but I do care about the context in which this happened, especially because there were firearms that this was a firearm related incident per se. So the rapper name is Takeoff. The group name is Migos. That other thing I want to say, there was a guy from the guy that shot him. He was apparently security. Now, the guy that he was security for, right? I guess his name is Jay Prince Jr. or whatever. This guy, he's no more, he's a young 20-something-year-old guy who was the shooter, right? The fact that these guys walk around every day with all that jewelry, flashing all that money and all that stuff, right? And I'm thinking to myself, you got all this, but you can't hire the proper security, right? And here is a cultural piece. and I know y'all keep hearing me saying culture, because I'm gonna be doing more content on this later. Um, these guys that know, the ones that have the jury, the ones who are quote unquote being protected, they know that these kids, they feel like these kids have nothing to lose for the most part. Plus, they give them a little money. They pretend to give them a little status in their crew or whatever, and then they give them guns and they ask them to protect them because they know, look, if he crash out and he decides to use that gun against someone else and he kills someone, guess what? I'm just gonna replace him with another one. The influence is so strong that it doesn't even deter or scare other people away from that kind of environment. So if you're a rapper and you listen to this, get yourself some real security, right? Stop playing around with the whole, I'm gonna have my homeboy, you know what I'm saying? He gonna have the Glock on him, he gonna have the FN, he gonna have the man, stop that. It's not worth your life, it's not worth the time that you can spend in jail and the other people that you're gonna possibly hurt or kill from this, right? So I think it's something that we really got to evaluate. I think in the hip-hop community and hip-hop culture, we've been talking about that for a long time, about people having the proper security. And don't get me wrong, every rapper does not operate like this. There are people, celebrity rappers and people, entertainers who actually have hired the proper security. And you'll be surprised, even the people who are quote unquote opposed to law enforcement, they have hired law enforcement to come and be their security, right? They have come and let law enforcement be their security, even though they're anti-cop or anti-police or whatever, right? So think about that. I just wanted this to be just a general topic to talk about, but things that we can reflect on for you as a self-defender as well. So if you were in that situation, this is how I'm gonna end it, and you can comment below. If you were in that situation, it doesn't have to be, let's say, a dice game. Let's say you were in that situation and you were at a restaurant, or you were at a festival or something, and you got into some heated words with someone, and you knew that you were armed. What are some of the things that you can actually do to mitigate that before it becomes a crisis, right? What kind of conflict resolution? What kind of de-escalation skills, and when I say de-escalation skills, what kind of tactics for de-escalation should you be employing, right? Think about that. So this is a reflection piece for the self-defender community as a whole. I'm not just trying to do things to have conversations about famous people for the most part, but I do want you to reflect. What are some de-escalation tactics that could have or should have been used, right? How do you resolve a conflict like that if you were in a similar situation? So anyways, this is Coffee with Coach. This is my first episode. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. There will be more content like this. And this is what I tell people: go through my videos, because if it's a year from now, there's still a lot of great content that I'm going to be posting that may be of great value to you that you missed a year ago that you can go back and watch. So peace and blessings. Think tactical. Think tactical like a civilian, not like a special forces operator, but think tactically like a civilian. So thank y'all for, if you watch this whole video, I really appreciate the fact that you did that. And there's going to be more episodes of Coffee with Coach. Peace.